"You do not belong here." The words cut through the evening air like a blade, and Sarah felt them lodge somewhere deep in her chest, where all the other rejections had already made their home. Victoria stood at the entrance of the ceremonial grounds, her crimson dress catching the last rays of sunlight, making her look like she was dressed in fire and blood. Behind her, 3 other she-wolves from prominent families laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. Sarah clutched the bundle of ceremonial candles. She had been tasked with placing around the ritual circle, her fingers going white at the knuckles. "I was told to prepare the grounds," she said quietly, keeping her eyes down the way she had learned to do over 23 years of being nobody. "I am just doing my job." Victoria stepped closer, and Sarah could smell her perfume, expensive and cloying, mixed with the natural scent of a strong wolf. A wolf that Sarah would never have. "Your job," Victoria repeated, her voice dripping with mockery, "is to stay in the shadows where you belong. Tonight, the Alpha King arrives to choose his Luna, and the last thing anyone needs is to see a wolfless orphan contaminating the sacred space." The other she-wolves murmured their agreement, and Sarah felt the familiar burn of shame creeping up her neck. She had spent her entire life being reminded that she was less than everyone else, that without a wolf, she was barely even considered pack, tolerated only because her grandmother had been a healer before she died. But her grandmother had also given her something else, something that nobody knew about, something that even now pressed against the inside of her left wrist with a weight that felt both comforting and terrifying. The bracelets hidden beneath her skin pulsed once, a soft throb that only she could feel, and Sarah forced herself to breathe through the sensation. It had been doing that more frequently lately, especially as the full moon approached. But she had learned long ago not to question it, not to examine it too closely. Her grandmother had performed the ritual when Sarah was only 7 years old, using ancient magic that was probably forbidden, pressing the silver bracelet beneath the skin of her wrist and sealing it there with words Sarah could no longer remember. "It will protect you," her grandmother had whispered, her old eyes fierce with something that looked like fear and hope mixed together. "When the time comes, it will show you who you really are. Until then, let no one know it exists." Sarah had kept that promise for 16 years, even as her grandmother died, even as she became more and more invisible to everyone around her, even as she watched others shift into their wolves and run under the moon while she remained stubbornly, painfully human. "I will finish quickly and leave," Sarah said now, moving to step around Victoria. But the Beta's daughter shifted to block her path. "I do not think you understand," Victoria said. And there was something ugly in her smile now, something that spoke of long-held resentment that had nothing to do with Sarah personally, and everything to do with what she represented. "Tonight, I become Luna. Tonight, the Alpha King will choose me, and when he does, one of my first acts will be to remove all the dead weight from this pack, starting with wolfless orphans who think they have a right to breathe the same air as their betters." Sarah felt something shift inside her chest, a flicker of anger that she usually kept buried deep beneath layers of learned submission. The bracelet pulsed again, harder this time, and for just a moment, she let herself imagine what it would be like to stand tall, to look Victoria in the eyes and tell her exactly what she thought of her cruelty. But survival had taught Sarah that imagination and reality were two very different things, so instead she simply nodded and took a step back. "Congratulations," she said softly. "I hope you will be very happy." The words were meant to be submissive, meant to end the confrontation, but something in Victoria's expression darkened anyway. "You think I do not see it?" she hissed, stepping so close that Sarah could feel her breath. "That pathetic hope you carry around like a disease? You think that maybe, just maybe, something magical will happen and you will finally be worth something? Let me make this clear. You are nothing. You will always be nothing. And tonight, when the Alpha King looks out over all the eligible females, His eyes will pass right over you like you do not even exist. Because to people like us, people who matter, you really do not. She turned on her heel and walked away, her followers trailing behind her like satellites orbiting a cruel sun. And Sarah stood there in the fading light, holding candles that suddenly felt too heavy, breathing through a tightness in her chest that had nothing to do with tears and everything to do with the grinding, exhausting weight of being exactly what Victoria said she was. Nothing. But the bracelet beneath her skin pulsed again, a steady rhythm now like a second heartbeat, and Sarah pressed her right hand against her left wrist, feeling the slight ridge where the silver lay hidden beneath flesh and scar tissue. Whatever her grandmother had given her, whatever secret lay buried in her own body, it was hers. It was the only thing in the entire world that was truly hers. And even if she did not understand it, even if it never amounted to anything more than a mystery she carried to her grave, at least it was something that Victoria and her pack of beautiful, powerful wolves could never take away. Sarah finished placing the candles as the sun finally set, working quickly and efficiently the way she had learned to do, staying invisible, staying quiet, staying safe. By the time the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, the ceremonial grounds were ready, a perfect circle of white candles surrounding the ancient stone altar where the Alpha King would stand to perform the ritual of claiming. She could hear the pack gathering in the distance, excited voices carrying on the evening breeze, and she knew it was time for her to disappear. She had done her job. Now she would do what she did best: vanish. She was halfway to the edge of the grounds when the howl split the night, a sound so powerful and so primal that it stopped every wolf in its tracks. Sarah felt it resonate in her bones, felt it sink into her chest and wrap around her heart like a physical thing, and the bracelet beneath her skin suddenly flared hot, so hot that she gasped and stumbled, pressing her hand against her wrist as pain and something else, something that felt almost like recognition, flooded through her. The Alpha King had arrived. Around her, wolves began to shift and howl in response, a chorus of submission and welcome that rose to meet the moon. But Sarah could not move, could barely breathe, because the heat from the bracelet was spreading now, moving up her arm in waves that made her skin prickle and her vision blur at the edges. She needed to leave. She needed to get somewhere private before whatever was happening to her became visible to others. She turned toward the shadows, toward the safe darkness beyond the ceremonial grounds. But her body would not cooperate, her legs suddenly feeling like they belonged to someone else, and she stumbled again, going down on one knee in the grass. "Steady there." The voice came, from directly behind her, and strong hands caught her shoulders, keeping her from falling completely. The touch sent a shock through her entire system, like lightning striking from the inside out, and the bracelet flared so hot that she actually cried out, jerking away from the contact. She looked up and up, because the man who had caught her was tall, and found herself staring into eyes that glowed pure gold in the darkness, eyes that belonged to a wolf so powerful that the air around him seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. The Alpha King looked down at her, and Sarah watched confusion flicker across his face, watched his nostrils flare as he scented her, watched something that looked almost like pain tighten the corners of his eyes. "You do not have a wolf," he said, and it was not a question. His voice was deep, resonant, the kind of voice that made you want to listen even when you knew you should run. "No," Sarah whispered, because what else could she say? Her left wrist was on fire, the bracelet pulsing so hard now that she was certain he must be able to see it moving beneath her skin. But when she glanced down, her arm looked normal, unmarked, giving away nothing. The Alpha King studied her for a long moment, his golden eyes searching her face like he was looking for something he could not quite name. "What is your name?" he asked. Nobody ever asked her name. People who mattered did not waste time learning the names of people who did not. "Sarah," she managed. Just Sarah. Something in his expression shifted, and he released her shoulders. But he did not step back, did not put distance between them the way she expected. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, a gesture that was purely wolf despite his human form, and said, "You are hurting." It was not a question, and Sarah realized with horror that she was still pressing her right hand against her left wrist, still trying to contain the heat that was radiating from the hidden bracelet. She dropped her hand immediately, forcing herself to straighten despite the pain. "I am fine," she lied. "I apologize for being in your way, Alpha King. I was just leaving." She tried to step around him the way she had tried with Victoria earlier, but this time when someone blocked her path, it felt different. There was no cruelty in it, no mockery, just a strange, intense focus that made her feel like she was the only person in the world, like everything else had faded away, and there was only this moment, this man, this impossible connection that she could not name but could feel thrumming through every nerve in her body. "Dante," he said quietly. "My name is Dante." Sarah blinked, confused and overwhelmed and still burning from the inside out. "I know who you are," she said, because everyone knew who he was. He was the Alpha King, ruler of the Northern Territories, the most powerful wolf in 300 years, the man who could have any female he wanted, and who had come here tonight to choose his Luna from among the best and brightest her pack had to offer. He was not supposed to be standing in the shadows talking to her. "Do you?" he asked, and there was something strange in his tone, something almost wistful. "Because right now, I am not entirely certain I know who I am." Before Sarah could figure out what that meant, a familiar voice cut through the darkness, sharp and imperious. "Alpha King, we have been waiting for you at the altar. The ritual must begin soon if we are to complete it under the full moon's apex." Victoria emerged from the direction of the ceremonial circle, her crimson dress now complemented by a crown of white flowers that marked her as the primary candidate for Luna. 3 steps behind her came Alpha Marcus, Sarah's pack leader, his face arranged in an expression of welcoming authority that did not quite hide his nervousness at keeping someone as powerful as Dante Blackthorn waiting. Dante turned slowly, and Sarah felt the loss of his attention. Like a physical thing, like something vital had been taken away. "Of course," he said, his voice shifting into something more formal, more distant. "Lead the way." Victoria's eyes landed on Sarah still kneeling in the grass, and her expression turned poisonous. "What are you still doing here?" she demanded. "I told you to leave." "She was just going," Dante said, before Sarah could respond, and there was a note of command in his voice that made Victoria stiffen. "But perhaps she should stay." The silence that followed was absolute. Alpha Marcus's eyes went wide. Victoria looked like she had been slapped, and Sarah felt the world tilt sideways because there was no possible reality in which the Alpha King would suggest that a wolfless orphan should attend the ritual of claiming. "I do not understand," Victoria said carefully, and Sarah could hear the effort it took for her to keep her voice respectful. "Sarah is not eligible for the ritual. She has no wolf. She is barely pack." "Nevertheless," Dante said, and his eyes found Sarah again, that golden gaze intense and searching. "I would like her present, unless there is some law that forbids it." Alpha Marcus cleared his throat, clearly scrambling for a diplomatic answer. "No law, Alpha King, but tradition holds that only those who could potentially be chosen should attend. It is meant to be a sacred ceremony, limited to those of proper standing." "Proper standing," Dante repeated, and something in the way he said it made it sound like an insult. "And who decides what constitutes proper standing, Alpha Marcus? Who determines which of the moon goddess's children are worthy to stand in her light?" It was a trap, Sarah realized. A political trap that Alpha Marcus had walked straight into, because to answer honestly would be to admit that they had created their own hierarchy, their own judgment system that had nothing to do with the moon goddess, and everything to do with power and bloodlines. "Please," Sarah said, quietly, forcing herself to stand despite the continued burning in her wrist. "I do not want to cause any problems. I will go." She did not wait for permission, just turned and walked toward the darkness beyond the ceremonial grounds, her heart hammering against her ribs and her mind spinning with confusion. What had just happened? Why had the Alpha King spoken to her at all, let alone defended her presence? And why did the bracelet continue to pulse beneath her skin? A rhythm that seemed to match footsteps she could hear following behind her. "Wait!" His voice carried command that her body responded to, even though she had no wolf to force submission. She stopped, but she did not turn around. Could not turn around, because if she looked at him again, if she saw whatever expression was on his face, she was afraid she might do something catastrophic like cry or laugh or demand answers to questions she had no right to ask. If you are enjoying this story, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. "I do not know what you are playing at," she said, keeping her voice low, "but I would appreciate it if you would just let me leave with what little dignity I have left." She heard him move closer, felt his presence at her back like heat from a fire. "I am not playing at anything," Dante said, and he sounded genuinely confused, genuinely thrown off balance in a way that someone like him should never sound. "I need you to tell me something, and I need you to tell me the truth." "What?" Sarah asked, still not turning. "Do you feel it?" The question was so quiet she almost missed it. "Feel what?" she whispered, but she knew. The moon goddess help her. She knew exactly what he was talking about, because she could feel it too. A pull that had nothing to do with logic or reason. A connection that thrummed beneath her skin, right alongside the pulse of the hidden bracelet. "Like thunder in your blood," Dante said. "Like every step you take away from me is physically painful. Like something is trying to claw its way out of your chest and reach for something it recognizes, but cannot name." Sarah closed her eyes, her breath coming short and fast. "I do not have a wolf," she said. "Whatever you are feeling, it cannot be what you think it is. The mate bond does not work without a wolf on both sides." "I know what the mate bond feels like," Dante said, and there was something raw in his voice now, something vulnerable that made her chest ache. "I have felt its absence for 30 years, waiting and searching and hoping. This is not that. This is something else. Something I have never felt before, and I need to understand what it is before I walk into that circle and choose a Luna out of political necessity rather than genuine connection." She turned then, unable to stop herself, and found him closer than she expected. Close enough that she could see the flecks of amber in his golden eyes. Close enough that she could smell pine and snow and something wild that made the bracelet flare hot again. "You should choose Victoria," Sarah heard herself say. "She is beautiful and strong and from a good family. She would be a proper Luna." "I do not want proper," Dante said, and he lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away, before he touched her face with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so powerful. "I want real." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and Sarah felt something crack, open inside her chest. Some wall she had built to protect herself from hope beginning to crumble. "I am not real," she whispered. "I am just a shadow that people look through." "Then they are fools," Dante said simply. "Because I see you, Sarah. From the moment I arrived, before I even knew you were there, I felt you, like a beacon in the darkness, like something calling me home." The bracelet pulsed hard, and this time she could not hide her flinch, could not stop the small gasp of pain that escaped her lips. Dante's eyes dropped immediately to her wrist, his expression sharpening with concern. "You are injured," he said, reaching for her arm. "No!" Sarah jerked back, cradling her left wrist against her chest. But the damage was done. She had reacted too strongly, revealed too much, and now Dante was looking at her with the kind of focused intensity that missed nothing. "Let me see," he said. And it was not quite a command, but not quite a request either. "It is nothing," insisted, but her voice shook, and she knew he could hear the lie. "Please, I just need to go home and rest. The full moon always makes me feel strange, and tonight is no different." "The full moon," Dante repeated slowly, and something clicked behind his eyes, some connection forming that Sarah could see but not understand. "When did it start? The pain in your wrist?" Sarah opened her mouth to deny it again, to lie better this time, but the words would not come. There was something about him, something in the way he looked at her, that made deception feel impossible. "Tonight," she admitted, "when you arrived, when I heard your howl." She watched him process that information, watched understanding and confusion, and something that looked almost like wonder cross his face. "Show me," he said quietly. "Whatever you are hiding, whatever is causing you pain, let me see it. I promise I will not judge you, will not harm you. I just need to understand." And maybe it was the exhaustion of always hiding. Or maybe it was the way the bracelet was burning now, like it wanted to be free. Or maybe it was simply that, for the first time in her life, someone was looking at her like she mattered. But Sarah found herself nodding. Her hands shook as she extended her left arm, the skin unmarked and pale in the moonlight. She could feel Dante's confusion, could almost hear him wondering what she was showing him. But then she pressed her right fingers against a specific spot on the inside of her wrist, and whispered the words her grandmother had taught her. Words in a language she did not understand, but that her mouth remembered anyway. The skin rippled, and then the bracelet appeared, silver and ancient, marked with symbols that seemed to glow with their own internal light. But it was not resting on top of her skin. It was beneath it, visible through flesh that had become translucent. The metal fused somehow to bone and vein and tendon, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Dante made a sound low in his throat, something between shock and awe, and his hand came up slowly to hover over her wrist, not quite touching. "How long have you had this?" he asked, his voice rough. "Since I was 7, Sarah whispered. "My grandmother put it there before she died. She said it would protect me, that it would show me who I really was when the time came. I never understood what she meant." "The seal of the primordials," Dante breathed, and Sarah felt the world drop away beneath her feet. Because she knew that name. Every wolf knew that name, even if they did not know what it meant. The primordials were legend, the first wolves, the ones who had been created directly by the moon goddess before pacts and territories and politics. They had vanished centuries ago, lost to time and myth, and nobody really believed they had been real. Except Dante was staring at her wrist like he was seeing a ghost, and the bracelet was pulsing harder now, responding to something, and Sarah realized, with horror, that her life had just become infinitely more complicated. "That is impossible," she said. "The primordials are just stories." "So everyone believes," Dante said quietly. "But I am the Alpha King, Sarah. I have access to records and archives that most wolves do not even know exist. I have seen drawings of this seal, read accounts of its power. It was supposed to mark the true blood descendants of the first pack, the ones who carried the pure strain of the moon goddess's original blessing." He looked up from her wrist to her face, and there was something in his expression that scared her more than Victoria's cruelty ever had, because it was hope, raw and desperate and dangerous. "If what you carry is real, if it is truly the seal, then you are not wolfless, Sarah. You are sleeping. Your wolf is not absent. It is waiting, waiting for the right moment, the right trigger to awaken." "No," Sarah said, shaking her head, trying to pull her arm back, but Dante caught her hand, gently holding her in place. "That is not possible. I am 23 years old. If I had a wolf, it would have emerged by now. Everyone shifts for the first time between 16 and 18. I am too old. Normal wolves shift between 16 and 18, Dante corrected. But the primordials were different. Their first shift often came later, sometimes not until they found their true mate, because their wolves were too powerful to emerge without that stabilizing connection. The word mate hung between them like a physical presence, and Sarah felt something inside her chest respond to it, something that had nothing to do with the bracelet and everything to do with the way Dante was looking at her now. Like she was precious, like she was important, like she was everything he had been searching for. "You are saying that you and I are mates?" she asked, and her voice came out barely above a whisper. "That this feeling, this pull, is real?" "I am saying that I do not know," Dante admitted, and his honesty felt like a gift. "I am saying that what I feel when I look at you defies everything I thought I knew about bonds and destiny. I am saying that the moment I heard your heartbeat, I felt my wolf recognize something. And now looking at that seal, understanding what you might be, I think we are standing at the edge of something that could change everything. Or destroy everything," Sarah said, because she was not naive enough to think this revelation came without cost. "Victoria expects to be chosen tonight. Your council expects you to select a Luna of proper lineage. If you do not complete the ritual, if you walk away to pursue this, whatever this is, there will be political consequences." "Let there be consequences," Dante said fiercely. "I have spent my entire reign making choices based on politics and propriety. I have selected advisors and allied with pacts, and negotiated treaties all while ignoring the one thing that actually matters, finding someone who makes me feel alive." He stepped closer, and Sarah could feel the heat rolling off him in waves, could see the way his eyes had started to glow brighter, his wolf rising close to the surface. "But I will not force you into anything," he continued, his voice dropping lower, more intimate. "If you tell me to walk away, if you tell me to complete the ritual with Victoria and forget this conversation ever happened, I will do it. Your choice, Sarah. Your life. Your decision." And that was the cruelest. Kindness he could have offered, because it meant she could not blame him for whatever happened next. She looked down at the bracelet still visible beneath her translucent skin, at the symbols that pulsed with light that matched the rhythm of her heart. She thought about her grandmother's fierce eyes, about the warning to keep it hidden until the time came. She thought about Victoria's promise to remove all dead weight from the pack, about a lifetime of being invisible and worthless and less than everyone else. Then she looked up at Dante, at this powerful, impossible man who had stopped in the middle of his own destiny to ask a wolfless orphan if she wanted to rewrite the future. And she made her choice. "I do not want you to walk away," she said. The smile that spread across Dante's face was like sunrise, bright and warm, and absolutely transforming. "Then we do this together," he said. "Whatever comes next, we face it as equals." "We are not equals," Sarah pointed out, trying to inject some reason into this insane situation. "You are the Alpha King. I am nobody." "You are the one wearing the seal of the primordials," Dante countered. "You are the one my wolf recognized before I even saw your face. You are the one who has survived 23 years without a pack's full protection, and still maintained enough strength to keep that seal hidden. Do not diminish yourself to make others comfortable, Sarah. Not anymore." Before she could respond, before she could process the implications of everything that had just been said, a howl rose from the ceremonial grounds, sharp and demanding. The pack was calling for their Alpha King, and the full moon had reached its apex. Time had run out. Dante looked toward the sound, his jaw tightening, and then back at Sarah. "I need to go to the circle," he said. "The ritual must be completed, or at least formally declined. Will you come with me?" "You want me to stand there while you choose Victoria?" Sarah asked, confused. "I want..." You to stand there while I choose you, Dante corrected. In front of the entire pack, in front of the moon goddess herself, I want to claim you as my mate and my Luna, but only if that is what you want. Sarah felt her breath catch, felt the world narrow down to just this moment, this choice, this precipice. Everything in her life had led to this point, she realized. Every hurt, every rejection, every moment of invisibility had been building toward this impossible, terrifying, wonderful decision. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I want that. Dante's eyes flashed gold, and then he was taking her hand, threading his fingers through hers with a care that made her chest ache. Then let us go shock the hell out of everyone, he said. And despite everything, despite the fear and the uncertainty, Sarah found herself laughing. They walked together back toward the ceremonial grounds, and with every step Sarah could feel the bracelet pulsing stronger beneath her skin, could feel something inside her chest beginning to unfurl like a flower reaching toward sunlight. The pack fell silent as they emerged from the shadows. 200 wolves frozen in shock at the sight of their alpha king holding hands with the wolfless orphan. Sarah could see Victoria standing at the altar, her face a mask of beautiful fury. Could see Alpha Marcus looking like he might have a heart attack. Could see dozens of other faces ranging from confusion to disgust to curiosity. But she kept her eyes forward, kept her hand in Dante's, and walked toward her destiny with her head held high for the first time in her life. What do you think will happen next? Leave your predictions in the comments below. The ceremonial circle was lit by hundreds of white candles, their flames dancing in the evening breeze and casting shadows that made the ancient stone altar look even older, even more sacred. Sarah had placed those candles herself just hours ago, never imagining that she would be standing in the center of their light, never dreaming that the ritual about to take place might include her in any way beyond servant and observer. The pack formed a loose ring around the outer edge of the candles, maintaining respectful distance from the sacred space. But Sarah could feel their eyes on her like physical touches, could hear the whispered confusion and speculation that rippled through the crowd like wind through grass. Dante led her to the center of the circle, to the space directly in front of the altar, and only then did he release her hand. He turned to face the assembled wolves, his posture straight and commanding, every inch the Alpha King despite the chaos he was about to unleash. I thank you for welcoming me to your territory, he began, his voice carrying easily across the grounds, pitched to reach even the wolves at the very back. I came here tonight to fulfill tradition, to choose a Luna through the sacred ritual of claiming. What I did not expect was to find something far more important than tradition. I did not expect to find truth. Victoria made a small sound of protest from where she stood at the altar's right side, but Alpha Marcus put a hand on her arm, silencing her. Sarah could see the calculation in the older wolf's eyes, could practically watch him trying to determine how to handle this situation without offending the most powerful alpha in the territories. The mate bond, Dante continued, is supposed to be the moon goddess's greatest gift to her children. It is supposed to transcend pack politics and family expectations. It is supposed to be sacred above all else. Yet how many of us have ignored it when it proved inconvenient? How many have chosen political alliances over genuine connection, proper bloodlines over true compatibility? He paused, letting the words sink in, and Sarah could feel the discomfort rolling off the assembled wolves. This was not the speech they had expected, not the ritual they had come to witness. I stand before you, tonight having felt something I have waited my entire life to experience, Dante said, and his eyes found Sarah, held her gaze with an intensity that made her breath catch. I stand before you having recognized in another wolf something that my own soul answers to, and I will not dishonor the moon goddess by pretending that politics matter more than her design. He turned to Alpha Marcus, his expression shifting to something harder, more commanding. I formally request the right to claim Sarah as my mate and Luna, to bind her to me through the sacred ritual under this full moon. The silence that followed was so complete that Sarah could hear her own heartbeat, could hear the crackle of candle flames and the distant sound of night birds. Then Victoria laughed, the sound sharp and ugly. "You cannot be serious," she said, "and protocol be damned." She stepped forward, her beautiful face twisted with contempt. "She has no wolf. She is not even properly pack. You would choose a defective orphan. Over me? Over any of the eligible females here tonight who could actually fulfill the role of Luna?" "Careful," Dante said, and his voice dropped into a register that made every wolf present straighten involuntarily, responding to the command of an alpha so powerful that his authority was absolute. "You are speaking about my mate. Mind your tone." "Mate?" Victoria spat the word like it was poison. "She cannot be your mate. The bond requires a wolf on both sides. Everyone knows that. This is some kind of trick, some scheme to manipulate you for her own benefit." She whirled to face Sarah directly, her eyes blazing with fury. "What did you do? What magic did you use? I know you come from a line of healers. Did your grandmother teach you some forbidden spell to ensnare an alpha?" "Victoria, that is enough," Alpha Marcus said, his voice strained, but his daughter ignored him. "Show us your wolf," Victoria demanded, stalking towards Sarah with predatory grace. "If you are truly the Alpha Kings." "Mate, if you are truly worthy to stand in this circle, then shift. Prove that you are not just some human pretending to be one of us." Sarah felt panic rise in her throat, felt the familiar shame and inadequacy threatening to swallow her whole. But then Dante was moving, putting himself between her and Victoria, with a speed that spoke of lethal intent. "Step back," he said quietly, and there was death in his voice, absolute and certain. "Or I will make you step back, and you will not enjoy the method." Victoria froze, survival instinct finally overriding her rage, and she retreated 3 steps, her chest heaving. But her eyes never left Sarah, and the hatred there was a living thing, a promise of violence that would come the moment Dante's protection was removed. "She cannot shift," Victoria said, appealing now to the watching pack, to the court of public opinion. "She has never shifted. She is wolfless, and everyone here knows it. This is a farce, and we are all watching our alpha. King be deceived by something we do not understand." "You are right," Sarah said quietly, and felt every eye snap to her. "I cannot shift. I have never had a wolf emerge. By every measure that this pack uses to determine worth, I am exactly what you say I am. Defective. Broken. Less than." She heard Dante make a sound of protest, but she held up her hand, asking him silently to let her speak. "But I am also something else," she continued, and she held up her left wrist, pressing her fingers against the spot that would reveal the bracelet. "Something that has been sleeping inside me, waiting for the right moment to wake up." She spoke the words her grandmother had taught her, and watched as the skin became translucent again, as the ancient silver seal appeared beneath the flesh, glowing with internal light that grew brighter and brighter until several wolves had to look away. The gasps that rippled through the crowd were audible, shocked exclamations in multiple voices, as wolves recognized the symbols, recognized what they were seeing even if they could not quite believe it. "The seal of the primordials," someone breathed from the crowd, and then others were echoing it, the name passing from wolf to wolf like wildfire. "Impossible. It is a trick. No, look at it. Look at how it glows. The primordials are extinct." "Then what is that on her wrist?" Alpha Marcus stepped forward, his face pale, his eyes fixed on Sarah's arm with an expression that combined shock and fear, and something that might have been awe. "How long have you hidden this?" he asked, and his voice shook. "All my life," Sarah said simply. "My grandmother gave it to me, sealed it beneath my skin when I was 7 years old. She told me to keep it secret until the time was right, and I have." Until tonight. Why tonight? Marcus asked. What changed? Sarah looked at Dante, at the Alpha King who had stopped his own ritual to pursue a connection he could not name, and she felt the truth of it settle in her bones. He changed things, she said. When he arrived, when I heard his howl, the seal responded. It recognized him, called to him, pulled us together. I do not fully understand it yet, but I know it is real. I know that whatever bond exists between us, it is connected to this seal, to the power it represents. The primordial wolves mated differently than we do, a new voice said, and an elderly she-wolf stepped forward from the crowd, her silver hair catching the moonlight. Sarah recognized her as Elder Teresa, one of the few wolves in the pack old enough to remember stories from before the last Great War. Their bonds were not instantaneous like ours. They required activation, awakening. The seal would recognize compatible souls, would draw them together, but the full bond could only form under specific conditions. What conditions? Dante asked, his attention laser-focused on the old woman. Elder Teresa looked between him and Sarah, her expression troubled. A blood. Oath under the full moon, she said. Witnessed by pack and sanctioned by the moon goddess herself. The claiming ritual, in other words. But for primordials, the ritual did more than just formalize a bond. It awakened the dormant wolf in the one who carried the seal. The implications of that statement hung in the air like smoke, and Sarah felt her heart begin to race. You are saying that if we complete the ritual, Dante said slowly, Sarah's wolf will emerge. I am saying that according to the old stories. Yes, Teresa replied. The primordial bloodline lay dormant across generations, waiting for the right match, the right moment, the right catalyst. If Sarah truly carries that bloodline, if the Alpha King is truly her destined match, then the claiming ritual should trigger her first shift. Should? Sarah repeated, latching onto that word. But you are not certain? Child, I am relating stories I heard from my grandmother, who heard them from hers, Teresa said gently. I cannot promise you anything except that what you carry is real and powerful and ancient beyond measure. What it will do is between you and the moon goddess. Victoria laughed again, but this time the sound was desperate rather than cruel. So we are supposed to just accept this? Supposed to watch our Alpha King bind himself to a wolfless nobody based on old women's tales and magical jewelry? This is insane. This is destiny, Dante said firmly. He turned to face the assembled pack, his posture radiating authority. I came here tonight to choose a Luna, and I have chosen. I choose Sarah, bearer of the primordial seal, recognized by my wolf and my soul as the one I have been searching for. Any who would challenge this choice may do so now, but know that you challenge not just my decision, but the will of the moon goddess herself. Silence. Complete absolute silence, as every wolf present processed what was happening, processed the implications of defying an Alpha King on a matter of mate. Claiming. Even Victoria, furious and humiliated as she was, seemed to understand that some lines could not be crossed. Then I will proceed with the ritual, Dante said. He turned to Sarah, and his expression softened, the command leaving his voice to be replaced with something gentler. If you are willing, if you understand that what we are about to do cannot be undone, that it will bind us together for life, that it may awaken something in you that has slept for 23 years. If you are ready to take that risk, to step into an unknown future with me, then I am ready to claim you before the moon goddess, and everyone here as witnesses. Sarah looked at the man before her, this powerful, impossible Alpha King, who had chosen her over politics and propriety. She looked at the assembled pack, at Victoria's rage and Alpha Marcus's fear, and the mixture of curiosity and skepticism on dozens of other faces. She looked down at the seal on her wrist, at the silver that glowed beneath her. Skin, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. And she thought about her grandmother's final words. "When the time comes, it will show you who you really are." "I am ready," Sarah said, and her voice did not shake. "I am ready to find out who I really am." If you want to see how this story ends, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Dante smiled, and then he was reaching for her hands, pulling her to stand directly in front of him at the altar. The ancient stone was carved with symbols that matched the ones on her seal, Sarah realized with a start, spirals and crescents and geometric patterns that seemed to move in the candlelight. "The ritual of claiming is ancient," Dante said, his voice formal now, taking on the cadence of ceremony. "It predates our modern pacts, predates politics and territory disputes. It returns us to the beginning, to the moment when the moon goddess first blessed her children with the gift of eternal partnership." He picked up a ceremonial knife that lay on the altar, its blade silver and sharp, catching the moonlight. "In claiming you, I offer my blood, my protection, my loyalty, and my heart. I swear before the moon goddess and these witnesses that from this moment forward, your enemies are my enemies, your joys are my joys, your burdens are mine to share." He drew the blade across his palm without hesitation, and dark blood welled up, dripping onto the altar stone where it sizzled slightly against the ancient rock. Then he held the knife out to Sarah, handle first, and waited. Sarah's hand shook slightly as she took the blade, but she forced herself to be steady as she pressed the sharp edge against her own palm. "In accepting your claim," she said, following the traditional words even though she had never expected to speak them, "I offer my blood, my trust, my loyalty, and my heart. I swear before the moon goddess and these witnesses that from this moment forward, your enemies are my enemies, your joys are my joys, your burdens are mine to share." She drew the blade across her skin, felt the sharp sting of pain, and watched as her own blood joined Dante's on the altar stone. The moment the two bloods mixed, the seal on her wrist flared so bright that several wolves cried out, shielding their eyes. Heat exploded through Sarah's entire body, not painful, but intense, like every nerve was suddenly awake and firing all at once. Dante grabbed her bleeding hand with his own, their wounds pressing together, their blood mingling, and Sarah felt something massive and powerful slam into her consciousness like a tidal wave. It was not words, not exactly, but she understood it anyway. Ancient. Waiting. Awake. Her wolf finally, after 23 years of silence, was rising. The pain hit next, and this time there was nothing metaphorical about it. Sarah's bones began to shift, to crack and reform, and she screamed, the sound raw and primal. She fell to her knees, still gripping Dante's hand like it was the only thing anchoring her to reality, and felt her body begin to tear itself apart and rebuild in a new configuration. "It is okay," Dante was saying, his voice cutting through the agony. "I have you. I am here. Let it happen, Sarah. Do not fight it. Let your wolf come." She could hear the pack murmuring, could hear shock and fear and excitement in their voices, but it all seemed distant, unimportant compared to what was happening inside her own skin. Her spine arched, her jaw elongated, her hands curled into claws, and then suddenly, blessedly, the pain crested and broke, and she was falling into sensation that was completely alien, and yet somehow utterly right. Fur rippled across her skin, silver and white, catching the moonlight. Her senses exploded outward, suddenly able to hear heartbeats from 50 yards away, to smell individual wolves in the crowd, to see in the darkness like it was daylight. Her muscles reformed, powerful and strong, and when she finally looked down at herself, she saw 4 paws instead of hands, saw a body that was lithe and predatory and absolutely, undeniably wolf. The pack erupted into howls, a chorus of welcome and recognition that made Sarah's new ears pin back briefly before she adjusted to the sound. She was dimly aware of Dante shifting beside her, his transformation smooth and practiced. And then she was looking up at a massive black wolf with gold eyes that gleamed in the darkness. Her mate. Her alpha. Her equal. The word resonated through. Their new bond with a certainty that needed no explanation. Dante's wolf moved closer, pressing his much larger body against her smaller one, and Sarah felt their bond snap into place completely, no longer just potential, but actual, a golden thread connecting their souls that she could see and feel and touch through their pack link. "Mine," he said through their bond, the word accompanied by such fierce possession and pride that it made her wolf preen. "Mine," she agreed, and felt his joy explode. Through their connection, like fireworks. They stood there for a moment, just breathing, just existing in the reality of what they had become together. And then Dante threw back his head and howled, a sound of pure triumph that resonated with power and ancient magic. Sarah joined him, her voice weaving with his in harmony, and around them the pack responded, 200 wolves singing their recognition of the new Luna, the new queen, the one who carried the blood of the primordials and had finally awakened. When they finally shifted back to human form, when Sarah found herself kneeling naked on the altar with Dante's arms wrapped around her, and his claiming mark already darkening on her neck, where he must have bisted her during the shift, she realized she was crying. Not from pain or fear, but from overwhelming relief. For 23 years she had been told she was broken, defective, less than everyone around her. For 23 years she had believed it, had internalized that wrongness until it became her entire identity. And now, in the space of a single evening, everything had changed. She had a wolf. She had a mate. She had a place. "How do you feel?" Dante asked softly, his lips against her temple, his voice rough with emotion. "Like myself," Sarah whispered. "For the first time in my life, I feel like myself." She pulled back enough to look at him, to see the way his eyes tracked over her face like he was memorizing every detail. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing me, for believing in me, for choosing me." "I did not choose you," Dante corrected gently. "The moon goddess chose us for each other. I simply had the good sense not to ignore her wisdom." He helped her to her feet, and someone, Elder Teresa, brought forward a ceremonial robe that Sarah wrapped around herself gratefully. The pack was still buzzing with energy, still processing what they had witnessed, and Sarah could see dozens of expressions ranging from wonder to confusion. To, in Victoria's case, pure hatred. Alpha Marcus approached cautiously, his expression carefully neutral. "Alpha King Dante," he said formally, "I offer my congratulations on your successful claiming, and I welcome Luna Sarah to her new position." The title felt foreign on Sarah's tongue, impossible to connect to herself, but Dante's hand squeezed hers, and she forced herself to stand tall, to accept the recognition. "I thank you for your hospitality, Alpha Marcus," Dante replied, "and for bearing witness to this sacred ritual. I trust the alliance between your pack and my kingdom remains strong." It was a test, Sarah realized, a political maneuvering to see if Marcus would continue to support them despite the unconventional circumstances. Marcus hesitated for only a second before nodding. "Of course, Alpha King. Your happiness and the will of the moon goddess are paramount." "Excellent," Dante said, and there was satisfaction in his voice. "Then I hope you will not mind if my Luna and I take our leave. It has been an eventful evening, and we have much to discuss." He did not wait for permission, just guided Sarah away from the altar, away from the assembled pack, toward the darkness beyond the ceremonial grounds. Behind them, Sarah could hear the pack beginning to disperse, could hear Victoria's furious voice demanding answers from her father, could hear the excited speculation about what this meant for the territory, for the kingdom, for the old stories that had suddenly become very real. But all of that felt distant, unimportant compared to the feeling of Dante's hand in hers, compared to the bond that thrummed between them like a living thing, compared to the wolf that now prowled contentedly in her mind, finally at home. They walked until the sounds of the pack faded, until they reached a small clearing by a stream where moonlight filtered through the trees in silver shafts. Only then did Dante stop. Only then did he turn to face her fully. "I know this is overwhelming," he said. "I know your entire world just changed in ways you are still processing. If you need time, if you need space, if you need to slow down and think about what comes next, I will understand." Sarah looked at him, at this powerful alpha king who had risked political fallout and pack judgment to claim her, and she felt her wolf surge forward with absolute certainty. "I do not want to slow down," she said. "I have spent 23 years being cautious, being invisible, being afraid to take up space. I am done with that. I want to move forward. I want to claim this life, this bond, this future. With you." Dante's eyes flashed gold, and then he was kissing her, his mouth claiming hers with a hunger that made her knees weak. The bond flared between them, golden and hot, and Sarah kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring all her relief and joy and desperate hope into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "My fierce mate," he murmured. "My impossible, incredible Luna. I am going to spend the rest of our lives making sure you never doubt your worth again." "Just love me," Sarah whispered. "That is all I need. Just love me and let me love you back." "Done," Dante said simply. "For now and forever. You have my word." They stood there in the moonlight, two souls finally united, two wolves finally home. And Sarah felt something that she had given up hoping for years ago. Peace. The next weeks passed in a blur of activity and adjustment. Dante took Sarah back to his kingdom, to a palace that sprawled across acres of land and housed hundreds of wolves from dozens of different packs. She met his advisors, his council, his warriors, and watched their initial skepticism transform into acceptance as they witnessed the bond between her and Dante, as they saw the way her wolf moved with grace and power that spoke of her primordial heritage. The seal on her wrist remained visible now, no longer hidden beneath skin, and it marked her as something special, something ancient, something that commanded respect, even from wolves who might otherwise have dismissed her as too young or too inexperienced. Elder Teresa came to visit, bringing with her ancient texts about the primordials, and together she and Sarah spent hours decoding the symbols on the seal, understanding the power it represented. "Your grandmother was protecting you," Teresa explained one afternoon as they sat in the palace library. "The primordial bloodline was hunted centuries ago, targeted by those who feared their power. By hiding your seal, by ensuring you appeared wolfless, she kept you safe until you were old enough and strong enough to defend yourself. She knew I would find my mate," Sarah realized. She knew the seal would call to him, would draw us together. "She hoped," Teresa corrected gently. "She could not be certain, but she had faith in the moon goddess's design, and that faith was rewarded." Sarah thought about her grandmother often, about the sacrifice and foresight required to seal away a child's wolf for protection, about the loneliness her grandmother must have felt keeping such a massive secret alone. She wished she could thank her, could tell her that the sacrifice had been worth it, that Sarah had found not just her wolf but her purpose, her partner, her place. But the dead did not return, so instead Sarah honored her grandmother's memory by living fully, by embracing her power instead of hiding from it, by standing at Dante's side as his equal and helping him rule with wisdom and compassion. Not everything was easy. Victoria's pack eventually withdrew their alliance, bitter over the perceived insult, and there were other packs who questioned Dante's judgment, who wondered if he had been manipulated by ancient magic, rather than guided by genuine bond. But for every wolf who doubted, there were 3 more who supported them, who saw the strength of their connection, and recognized it as authentic. 6 months after the claiming ritual, Sarah stood on a balcony overlooking the kingdom, watching the sun rise over the mountains, and felt Dante's arms wrap around her from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, his breath warm against her ear. "How different my life is now," Sarah admitted. "How impossible all of this would have seemed a year ago. How grateful I am that you were brave enough to choose me over what was expected. I would choose you 1,000 times over," Dante said firmly. "In every lifetime, in every possible world, I would recognize you and claim you and love you. You are not just my mate, Sarah. You are my partner, my equal, my Luna, in every sense of the word." Sarah turned in his arms, looking up at the face she had come to know as well as her own, and felt her wolf purr with contentment. "I love you," she said simply. "I know I do not say it enough, but I need you to know. I love you more than I thought possible." "I love you too," Dante replied. "My Sarah, my Luna, my forever." They stood there as the sun climbed higher, two wolves united by destiny and choice, by ancient magic and modern devotion, and Sarah knew with absolute certainty that she had found her home. Not in a place, not in a palace or a kingdom, but in him, in them, in the bond that would hold them together through whatever challenges came next. She was no longer the wolfless orphan that Victoria had mocked, no longer the invisible servant that her pack had overlooked. She was Luna Sarah, bearer of the primordial seal, mate to the Alpha King, and she had finally become exactly who she was always meant to be: strong, powerful, loved, and absolutely, undeniably whole. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who loves epic romance. Tell me in the comments, did you see this ending coming?